Well, last week I updated you guys with my latest Dynasty running back rankings. Today, I'm going to give you my updated top 50 Dynasty wide receiver rankings. So much has changed since we've last released a video like this. So let's not waste any time. Let's just go ahead and dive right on in. So we're going to go through all these tiers, starting off with tier 1. And to be honest, guys, there's a lot to discuss here. This tier has never been bigger than it is in the year of 2025. Let's have a conversation. I would love to hear your comments below. And if you think I'm absolutely crazy for having all these guys in the same tier, obviously Jamar Chase, it was a rough couple weeks there with Jake Browning. However, with Joe Flacco now running things, it's basically like having Joe Burrow there. No disrespect to Joe Burrow, but just like the magnet ball is right on back. He's averaging 21.3 points per game right now, by the way. A 12.38 targets per game mark, which is just insane. Shout out to Joe Flacco. Right now with Joe Flacco alone, I think he's on track for like 300 targets or something stupid like that. 31% target share, averaging over 90 receiving yards per game. And by the way, that is like throughout all of the terrible games that he ended up having with Jake Browning. Still to average 21.3 points per game. Incredibly impressive in my opinion. But obviously he's got to be the 101 in a dynasty one quarterback startup draft. In Superflex, he's still a first round pick. He has shown time and time again how elite of an asset he is. He's at the top. Right behind him, Puka Nacua. Honestly, if Puka Nacua didn't go down with the injury, maybe he has a top spot there at number 1 because he was on track to have a better season than Cooper Kupp's best season in LA. He was absolutely dominant. We finally get to see him back this week against the Saints, but averaging over 23 points per game, had a 31% target share, averaging over 100 yards per game. Only he and Jackson Smith-Njigba this year are averaging over 100 yards per game at the wide receiver position. We'll talk about JSN here in a second. Might be some surprises from some of you, but I think he's deserving of being there. With Puka Nacua, as long as Sean McVay is there, as long as Matthew Stafford is there, he's an elite player, always has a high yards per route run. I think it's just time to stop disrespecting Puka Nacua in Dynasty football. Let's talk about Jackson Smith-Njigba next. Now, JSN is like one of these names where it's like, when he came out of his class, if you guys remember, if you were watching the channel, we called him the can't miss prospect of that class. I don't think I ever envisioned even JSN being a top 3 Dynasty wide receiver, but that's where I have him right now. 22.1 points per game. That is the definition of elite. Has a 10 target per game rate right now, almost a 39% target share. Guys, what Sam Darnold did last year for Justin Jefferson, he's doing that and more this year for Jackson Smith-Njigba. But here's the great part. Darnold is signed long-term, so you have this security with Jackson Smith-Njigba averaging the most receiving yards per game of any wide receiver this year, 117. And you know what's absolutely bonkers about JSN? A 4.5 yards per route run. That is like unheard of. That is generationally good. I know the word generational gets thrown around all the time. That is rarefied air. I would be shocked if that continues for the rest of the entire season, but we got to give props where props are due. Shout out to him averaging over 22 points per game. And then you've got these other names in here. For example, you go and look at a CD Lamb, who obviously his points per game number is not that attractive right now, but you got to keep in mind, one of those games against the Chicago Bears, he went down with the ankle injury. This is still a guy that you anticipate to be elite rest of the season. In an elite offense, a part of a terrible defense. CD's got Dak Prescott long-term. Again, this guy deserves to be in this tier still. Amon-Ra St. Brown, over 21 points per game. I'm a dumbass because I really thought Jameson Williams was going to take another step up this year. Clearly, that is not the case. Clearly it's like Amon-Ra's the guy. I don't know, biggest sweep of the rug this entire offseason, this entire coaching staff talking about Jameson Williams and signing him to the extension and talk about how he has a breakout even though he had 1,000 yards last year. It doesn't matter. This offense, the engine is Amon-Ra St. Brown, averaging a 32% target share. Just absolutely elite stuff. Now, Justin Jefferson, I'll be honest with you guys, I was considering not keeping him in this tier. Last year, there was some concern from plenty of people saying, oh no, without Kirk Cousins, and can Sam Darnold do it? Can we trust JJ McCarthy? Well, we didn't have to answer that last question last year, but Sam Darnold was able to do it. This year, we still have that same question. can we trust JJ McCarthy? Not only JJ McCarthy, but you have to worry about Jordan Addison right now. I mean, Jordan Addison is putting up just as many points per game as Justin Jefferson, but the reason I'm leaving Jefferson in this tier is because he has years and years to show us that he's an elite wide receiver. So maybe he's not deserving of being this tier in your mind, but I still want to give props where props are due. So let's go to our next tier. Hey, where are my Rashee Rice people at? I mean, hey, we had some debates on this channel with some of the comment sections. Where are my Rashee Rice people at? Our opinion was if you can buy low on an elite player because of an injury, you're always going to do that. That's what we went out and did all year on our channel, suggesting for you guys to buy him. And people said, well, it's not a buy low. It's not a buy low. No, whenever you bought him this offseason, I promise you bought low on Rashee Rice. Now my wide receiver 7 in Dynasty football. I mean, I'm not even sure if someone sent me Justin Jefferson if I'm like all that thrilled to go out and give them Rashee Rice at this point, to be honest. Last game he almost scored 4 touchdowns. They're using him in the Wildcat. He's clearly their preference in the red zone. What else could you want from a Rashee Rice, by the way? Averaging 24.4 points per game. That is more than any of the guys in the top tier. Now, of course, you don't anticipate him to, outscore those guys for the entirety of the season, but averaging 9.5 targets per game, almost a 30% target share. He's getting into the end zone. He's reliable in PPR. They use him around the line of scrimmage as well. I mean, this is like the best version of Deebo Samuel, like maybe we've ever seen in his career. That's what you're getting with Rashee Rice right now. Malik Neighbors, the next guy in this tier. Look, I don't want to disrespect Malik Neighbors. He just had his ACL injury, repaired rather, excuse me. So this is someone that I don't want to put too low in my rankings because all indications tell us that he should be ready by the start of next year. So I said the same exact thing all last year with Rashee Rice around this time, all the way leading up until the season. If you can buy an potentially elite player in fantasy football, young guy, because of an injury dip, you do it. And I'm going to do the same thing with Malik Neighbors. No, I'm not a doctor. Yes, I know there was ACL, MCL stuff involved there, but I told you guys to do this all last year with Rashee Rice. It's going to be harder because Malik Neighbors is a hotter name. He's got the first round, top 5 draft capital, top 6 draft capital. It's going to be harder to do. But if you're a rebuilder right now, there's probably not a better buy than Malik Neighbors in all of Dynasty football. Okay, let's go ahead and let's jump into my third tier where how about Emeka Egbuka? If you know, it's a meme. I know it's Emeka Egbuka. Shout out to Egbuka, man. I mean, what an incredible season from him. And really, everything has gone his way as far as fantasy football purposes go, because you were going into the season thinking, wow, well, Mike Evans could be involved. Chris Godwin could be back at some point. Obviously, they already have K. Dotton. We have to worry about Jalen McMillan potentially. And they've got 2 really good pass-catching running backs. I mean, this entire team got injured to a point where Emeka Egbuka was asked to become the guy almost from day one, and he did not disappoint. I mean, Egbuka has been the definition of a superstar year 1 wide receiver, averaging 15 points per game right now, just over about 15 and a half. Right now, he has a 22.4% target share, averaging over 70 receiving yards per game. I mean, this guy looks to be everything that the Bucs will want for their future. You know what I mean? I mean, Mike Evans, there was already talk about him retiring after this year. The 1,000-yard streak is going to be dead. Emeka Egbuka is the future of this team. And I don't think anyone, I mean, I'll call myself out. I definitely didn't think Egbuka would have this rookie season. I thought Mike Evans would be more involved and healthy. I thought Chris Godwin would be healthy at this point. We loved Egbuka as a prospect, but we did not anticipate. I mean, we were kind of comparing him to like JSN year 1. That's what we were saying on this channel. Clearly, that was completely wrong. 15 and a half points per game. My wide receiver 9. Right after him, let's talk about Drake London. The issue with Drake London is there's just no consistency, and I'm not even sure it's his fault. Really, like between Michael Penix, Kirk Cousins had a game there. There's just no consistency. He didn't actually play with Kirk Cousins, but regardless, there's no consistency week in, week out. The splits on the road and at home are really concerning, but still, this is a young wide receiver that from a utilization perspective is showing there is an elite upside that is yet to be fully tapped into, right? We're talking a 32% target share. That is just insane. 32%. I mean, the only guy above him that has a higher target, I mean, you're talking like Jamar Chase target share. You're talking Puka Nacua target share, Amon-Ra target share. That's the type of volume he's seeing. Unfortunately, just hasn't turned into consistent, fantasy success just yet. averaging about 78 receiving yards per game. I would love for that consistency to be there, but it's not there just yet. But he's clearly the future of this receiving attack, no doubt about it. Right after that, we have Rome Odunze, our breakout of the year. It's looking absolutely fantastic. You know, a year ago, we encouraged you guys, go buy Jackson Smith-Njigba. And look, I'm not only talking about my wins. I talked about my loss with Igbuka. I didn't have that expectation. But this offseason, Rome Odunze was our breakout of the year. Excited to see him finally step into that role, getting about a 25% target share, averaging almost 16 points per game. The only concern for me is just at some point you'd have to anticipate they are going to get Colson Loveland more involved, Luther Burden more involved. So I will have him here at wide receiver 11. But honestly, the way my tiers work, you guys know this if you're following the channel, is all these guys in their tiers, I would value them the same, right? So if you prefer CeeDee Lamb over Jason, fine. Like, I'm not going to fight you over that. If you prefer Drake London over Igbuka, fine. Like, that's fine. We don't need to fight about these things. These are where we value these guys in these buckets. Okay. Right after that, we've got Garrett Wilson, who was set up to have, I mean, he was like a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy football before the injury. It's the same thing every single year, though. Quarterback. I mean, at some point, if he finds a consistent quarterback, we could be seeing like a top 10 finish in fantasy football. There's no doubt about it. Right now, he's averaging 16.6 points per game, almost a 38% target share. So even though it's a small pie in New York, he's getting the vast majority of that pie. Lab McConkey, if you guys went out there and you bought Lab McConkey in the first 5 weeks of the Dynasty season, you would be well rewarded right now. You know, just for future reference, typically, and I know we're all subject to this, right? We all find it difficult to look at a trend versus a rule. And typically, if guys have shown you an entire season of just being that dude, don't give up on them too early. And that's kind of where I stand on a name like Lab McConkey. Okay, let's jump into our next tier. We're going to look at a big old group of wide receivers here. Starting off with Tetaroa McMillan. This guy, he's got his stuff, man. He's got everything in that bag. Big body, contested catcher, really good after the catch. The clear #1 target in this offense, 25% target share, averaging just 12.5 points per game. However, he's doing that, and what I would probably label the worst passing attack outside of the Raiders in the NFL. Is that fair to say? Like, Bryce Young, this team clearly doesn't trust him to throw the ball. It was great to see Andy Dalton out there kind of flinging it to him, but he's got everything you need to project a future wide receiver 1 finish. He's already the wide receiver 18 in fantasy this year, but he just needs a better quarterback, honestly. And I don't think we've seen enough from Bryce Young to say he's the future of this team. So you would anticipate this team looking at options outside of Bryce in the future, and I just want to bet on this player long term. Brian Thomas. Okay, let's be honest. Let's be transparent. I have no idea where to rank Brian Thomas right now. This is the most difficult receiver to rank in Dynasty football. Tell me I'm wrong. Am I wrong? I feel like he's the most difficult guy to rank because last year he had a historic season. If you look at, like since 2000, there was only like 5 to 7 guys who did what he did as a rookie. Completely elite. It happened with Mac Jones. Clearly, he and Trevor Lawrence not on the same page yet. As much as we were excited to see Liam Cohen, he hasn't really, I would say, put him in a position to succeed. And Brian Thomas is also not playing up to his potential just yet. Now, here's what I believe, and I don't care if you believe something different. It's completely fair. I believe this is still one of the better receivers in the NFL who has been dealing with injuries. I mean, not only the wrist, but you saw the shoulder. I believe, just like Lab McConkey, that we've already seen an elite season from him, so I don't want to give up on him too early. However, I also am aware that this could be a concerning trend. So if you have some potential trades out there, you can explore them, but just don't undersell him. Nico Collins, I mean, this offensive coordinator's got to go. All right, Nick Haley's got to get the hell out of Houston. What in the world is going on with Nico Collins? I think he's a great buy low in Dynasty football. I truly do. That offense looks like they're starting to figure some stuff out. And long-term, he's the alpha, although I really like that entire wide receiver core there. How about Travis Hunter? Now, I got quite a few DMs because I hadn't really decided to move Travis Hunter down my rankings just yet in Dynasty, and a lot of you guys were upset about that. Look, he's only had 1 game as a feature wide receiver. I would not be shocked at all if by the end of this season, Travis Hunter is the #1 receiver in this offense. That would not shock me whatsoever. Of course, as we said during Dynasty rookie drafts, we can't promise you what his involvement on defense is going to be. I can still tell you that to this day. However, there's a very good trend, at least a good sample from his previous game where they made him their #1 wide receiver. And this guy's just too talented, man. Just way too talented. In my pro comps, I compared him like ceiling outcome to like a CeeDee Lamb, Devonta Smith. I think this guy can absolutely carry your passing attack. So I'm excited to see what he does after the bye, that post bye week bump. I hope we see that for Travis Hunter. Chris Olave, this is what we've been dreaming about for Chris Olave his entire career. Finally, he's being peppered with targets. Thank God we finally have Kellen Moore in town. Well, that's great for Olave, not good for Alvin Kamara. That's a different story. 14.5 points per game. Okay. He's averaging a 30% target share, which is just insane. Almost 31%, almost 63 yards per game. It's not a good offense. Honestly, this is probably one of the worst offenses in the entire NFL, but still he's getting peppered with targets. You can call it a PPR scam. He's a very good player. I think he's going to sign there long-term. And if you have him, I think you should feel very good about being patient with such a good player like Chris Olave. George Pickens. We love us some George Pickens this offseason. We're so excited when he was traded to the Cowboys, had high expectations. I don't think we anticipated him scoring 18 points per game through the first 8 weeks of the season. But of course, CeeDee Lamb did miss a significant period of time. But just like CeeDee Lamb, he's on the perfect offense. I mean, he fits this offense like a glove. Honestly, if George Pickens signed a long-term contract, maybe you put him at the top of this tier. Always a player that we thought was so talented, was just in the worst situation in Pittsburgh. Finally, he's in a situation where his skill set shines. He's averaging a 21% target share, almost 8 targets per game. That number is going to come down, obviously, with CeeDee Lamb. But we're talking about a guy, 85 receiving yards per game, so talented, showed that he could be the #1. I mean, if anyone's doubting that, he showed he could be the #1 in an elite offense. He actually proven that, has proven that without CeeDee Lamb. All right, on the back end of this tier, Marvin Harrison. I'll be honest, I think I need 4 more weeks before I really start to say it's time to panic on Marvin Harrison. I'm not sure you'll ever see consistency with Kyler Murray as a quarterback. And it's not all on Kyler Murray, but I mean, the man, it sounds stupid. He can't see beyond his offensive line. Very limited range of vision. And I think that's a legitimate problem. I would prefer Jacoby Brissett to start for the rest of the year. At 21, Zay Flowers. Honestly, Zay Flowers is having a pretty good year. It's just Lamar Jackson has been injured. But his numbers with and without Lamar Jackson, very impressive. He could end up being one of these second half risers, not only in Dynasty, but in fantasy football. Guys, I appreciate you so much for coming out here and watching the video. If you don't know, we are still doing team playbooks, which is a customized team review for your Dynasty football team. You can get yours, and we're doing them every single week on streams by using the promo code LAND, becoming an annual Mother Flocker member. That will give you a voucher that you can use through the Flock store. Now, you can also get a team playbook if you're a member of a different promo code. You just got to buy it a la carte. So definitely check that out in the pinned comment. If you want us to have a look at your Dynasty team, would love to do so. All right, let's dive into tier number 5. I'm not going to spend as much time as we get lower into these tiers. But how about Jalen Waddle? It's been this constant conversation that, at some point, if Tyreek Hill were to retire or to get traded, Jalen Waddle would step into a more prominent role. And that was kind of forced onto Miami this year. I am going to go ahead and say Tyreek Hill doesn't play another snap in the NFL. I could be wrong, but that sort of injury, they're trying to figure out if the man can walk comfortably right now. I just don't see him coming back in the NFL, especially because his skill set is based off of speed. It's great to see Jalen Waddle in a feature role, averaging about 14 points per game, which is pretty impressive when you consider how terrible that offense has been. It's not the type of target share you would see from a Jamar Chase or, a JSN or any of these top names, but he should be highly valued. Xavier Worthy next. We were very much team Rashee Rice this offseason, but I don't want to give up on Xavier Worthy just yet. In fact, he might actually be a pretty good buy low. You've got a team in Kansas City that is throwing the ball more than pretty much anyone in the NFL. They're definitely top 5. Patrick Mahomes is back in MVP form. He looks like the absolute God version of himself. And this is basically like Jameson Williams, but attached to Patrick Mahomes. And it's like Xavier Worthy is going to be more involved. There's a safer floor. So I think Xavier Worthy is actually a decent buy low. He's not ever going to be a #1. I mean, I never really saw that. I never understood, people saying he was going to overtake Rashee Rice, but still a very good player. Right after that, we have T. Higgins, who honestly, if Joe Burrow was healthy, I'd probably have him ranked higher. But right now, Joe Flacco is just laser beamed onto Jamar Chase. DK Metcalf, the alpha in Pittsburgh, which we talked about this offseason. But unfortunately, it's just not always a part of a good offense. Devonta Smith, I have no problem if you want to put him at the top of this tier. Honestly, maybe he should. If A.J. Brown is actually moved off this team in the future, Devonta Smith would, become a top 20 name. There's no doubt about it. He's so talented. Right now, getting about a 25% target share. The Eagles are starting to throw the ball a little bit more, but if they had it their way, they would still be a very run-heavy team. And I think that's what they're going to fix after the bye week. Jordan Addison, how about it, man? 16 points per game. Again, these tiers are all bucketed value. So if you want to put Addison at the top of this tier, I have no problem with you guys doing that. You could even, justify putting him at the end of tier 4, averaging 16 points per game since he came back from suspension. Now, here's the concern. Those 16 points per game, you had no J.J. McCarthy in the lineup, okay? It was Carson Wentz. So we have to figure out, can J.J. McCarthy support Jefferson? And then we also have to ask, can he support both Jefferson and Jordan Addison? I don't know the answer to that just yet. Maybe in a couple weeks, if you're watching this later on, we already know that, and I look like a fool for putting him this low, but you can be as high as wide receiver 22. I really don't mind. How about Michael Pittman? What a bounce back from Michael Pittman, man. If you were able to buy him low, congratulations, because he looks like the alpha #1 wide receiver there. I was a big Josh Downs guy this offseason, I'm not going to lie to you guys, but almost 16 points per game, excuse me, averaging a 22% target share. And, it's not like the highest yards per game, 55 yards per game. He's getting a lot of touchdowns right now, so that's a little concerning because those touchdowns aren't as sticky on a week-to-week basis. But we do got to give him his props because they are well-deserved. After that, we have A.J. Brown, who was my biggest sell high this entire offseason. And my idea was, hey, he's going to get older each and every year. Even if he performs at elite level this year, that age people are going to look at next year at 29. They're not going to want any part of it. So hopefully you're able to sell high on him. He's a fine buy for contenders out there, but yeah, he's going to be a nightmare to sell this offseason, honestly. Quentin Johnston, man, I mean, maybe outside of, earlier we were talking about Brian Thomas. Maybe Quentin Johnston's the second most difficult player to rank in Dynasty right now. The first 5 weeks, you were like, oh my God, is Quentin Johnston a top 15 Dynasty wide receiver, top 12? But now things have come back down to earth. The offensive line is not in good shape. They're not able to throw the ball down the field like they used to. So you're seeing Gadsden as well break out. That's obviously impacting him as well. And then Ricky Pearsall here to end. Ricky Pearsall averaging 13 points per game. Had plenty of really good receiving games before the injury, averaging almost 82 receiving yards per game. I'm confident if he had stayed healthy, he would have broken out and kind of established himself as this team's #1. However, Ayuk will be back soon and he's not able to stay healthy. That's a problem. Okay, appreciate you guys watching the video. I would love to hear your comments below. I'd love for you to hit that like button if you appreciate the video and subscribe if you find any value. Let's go to tier number 6. This is a big old tier, y'all. Starting off with Terry McLaurin, veteran wide receiver, obviously talented, but the quad injury, man. You might, we don't know exactly how long this quad injury is going to go for on. It might be nothing. It might be multiple weeks. They have about 3 weeks until their bye, so it's a little bit concerning, but veteran receiver, not producing. This entire offense in Washington can't stay healthy. It's not really effective. It's not efficient. So that's why he's this low. Matthew Golden, it's been about as disappointing as it could be for Matthew Golden, honestly. If you were a Matthew Golden hater this offseason, congratulations. You were right as a hater. Right now, he has not demanded targets. He's averaging about 3.7 targets per game. And that's in a season where Christian Watson wasn't healthy, where Jaden Reed went down with an injury. If he was going to demand targets, he can still develop into a really good player, but I'm not really seeing it right now. In fact, I probably should have Luther Burden over him. I do still love me some Luther Burden. Olamide Zaccheaus is such a cock block right now. Get out of the way, man. Ben Johnson, can you please feature Luther Burden? Stop playing Zaccheaus at this point. It's so frustrating. Jamison Williams. Oh, man. I don't know that, for me, there's personally a bigger disappointment than Jamison Williams this year. I was so excited last year to see him in his prime. His prime it's funny to say, but, he got over 1,000 yards, missed some time, and then the team said he was going to break out. They were so excited about him, breakout of the year, star of the camps. It just didn't matter. He is not. Jamison is a sad case of he's so important to the Lions offense, completely invaluable. However, completely valueless in fantasy football because he's always stretching the field. They've always got 2 high safeties, and it's always opening things up underneath for Amon-Ra, Laporta, Gibbs, that running game. So it's a damn shame, honestly. Right after that, Cortland Sutton, just a veteran who's, a playable name, but never going to be elite. Ayuk, I think, is a really good buy low right now in Dynasty football. He should be back from that injury soon. DJ Moore is really falling off a cliff. Devontae Adams, one of our favorite buys for contenders this offseason. It's worked out really great, almost 16 points per game, over a 27% target share. After that, we have names like Josh Downs, Wan'Dale Robinson, Khalil Shakir. These guys that are playing, primarily in the slot, a little bit inside, outside, never going to be, elite names, but decent flex options in fantasy football. And, they're quite young. Okay, let's jump into this next tier. It's a huge tier, okay? So let's start with Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. Jalen Noel, my guy this offseason. It's been awesome to see him get more and more worked into this Houston Texans passing attack. Christian Kirk, let's be real. Kaylee, let's get Kirk out of this, all right? He's not effective even when he's healthy. Jalen Noel's got so much juice. Let's let the young guys come in, just carry this passing attack. Jaden Higgins was featured last week without Nico Collins. You can see how much of a great player he can be. But these two guys, I think, are going to be ascending over the course of the second half of the season. Great buy lows right now in Dynasty football. We've got some veterans here like the Deebo Samuels, the Stephon Diggs, the Chris Godwins. These are guys that are veterans that you can play, the Romeo Dobbs, they're flex options, but I'm just not that excited about them long term. I don't envision really any of them being like dominant in fantasy football. As they age, I think they're more complementary pieces in their offenses. But Deebo, another name that we suggested to buy for contenders, that's worked out really well, averaging about 14 points per game. We've got some other names here like Kayshon Boutte. I just would love some consistency. I'd love some consistent targets for Boutte because I really think he could be a true breakout. It's just, you never know if it's going to be Douglas, Henry, Diggs, Boutte. It's just, there's a lot going on. Chimere DK. Let's talk about DK, man, because ever since the Titans released Tyler Lockett, DK's been on an absolute tear, ladies and gentlemen. It's been so fun to watch. Out of that slot, he's also getting played in 2 wide receiver sets. Calvin really doesn't impact his slot usage. Obviously, he's their slot guy. And I think he's going to get a potential opportunity here to really break out second half of the season. I mean, we could see DK as like the number 1 in Tennessee pretty easily. In fact, if I had to choose between any of these guys right now, Ellick is, a fun player, but DK's just got those easier targets, right? They just make his life a little bit easier in fantasy football. We've got names like Dobbs and Keon, who honestly, we were never big Keon Coleman guys coming out of Florida State. I think you can probably see now why. There's just no consistency. He's not a reliable guy that you can funnel targets through. Troy Franklin, a guy that we really loved coming out of Oregon, finally starting to kind of hit his stride. But at the same time, there's just so much inconsistencies with him. We loved us some Tez Johnson, kind of compared him a little bit to Tank Dell when he was coming out. It's finally, it's awesome to see him finally get featured in a role with all the injuries they have there in Tampa Bay. I'm convinced at this point that Tez Johnson, if you just make him the wide receiver 2 in Tampa Bay and you remove Chris Godwin, I mean, he's a startable guy every single week. So maybe he's a buy low. Jaden Reed is the last guy that you guys can't see there. But look, there's plenty of names I could have talked about. I'll shout out a couple like Coker and Jack Besh and Trey Harris, Keenan Allen, Torrey Hortons of the world, Kyle Williams, Alec Pierce, Calvin, Rashid Shaheed. There's just plenty of names we could have shouted out, but ultimately the video can only be so long. But guys, I appreciate you so much for being here. We are getting back into the Dynasty content. Do me a massive favor, hit the like button and show some love. Subscribe if you liked the content. And again, last thing I'll say here is if you do want a team playbook, you want us to have a look at your Dynasty football team, you can get that by using the promo code LAND, becoming an annual Mother Flocker member on the Flock site. You can check out the pinned comment down below. But enjoy the rest of your day. Nothing but love, guys.